Welcome to The Grant, the EU funding podcast. The Grant. My name is Niels Tudor Winter, and I'm the creator, editor, and host of The Grant. The Grant is an independent podcast initiative with the ambition to dig into all corners of the EU R&D funding system on topics of interest for the full EU R&D funding community. Reporting to the EU Commission in a funded project is an art in itself. From the face of it, it looks like a fairly simple part of implementing a project, but of course it is not. The complexity of implementing the projects, combined with the number of partners and being on top of regulation and formalities, all adds to this task being something that anybody should prepare solidly for. Thanks God you all got the grant to give a helping hand. In the implementation series, I am doing everything I can, together with guest experts, to give everybody input, information and critical mass on how to carry out an EU-funded project. I managed to get the wonderful Serena Cogoni, Horizon Europe expert, into the virtual podcast studio to take us all through the ins and outs of periodic reporting. This is a double episode, and last week we kicked off zooming in on what is exactly the requirements of periodic reporting, how to prepare yourself and your administrative systems, and the first periodic reporting itself. In this second half, we dig into the elements of the final reporting, including the relationship to the project officer, the online reporting submission system, strategies to develop a compelling final report, and not least some tips and do's and don'ts. Great stuff. Please enjoy. The Grant. Now I didn't make a bridge here. Just the next element, the next block I have is the final. Not allowed to call it final report. The reporting in the end of the project, yeah, when you have to report when the project.
Yeah, but at this point, what I would say is just that at the very end of the project, the report will look like as the reporting period, just for the last period of the project. There is nothing specific for the final report. In the past, there was a specific template, but it is not like this in Horizon Europe anymore. So
okay, so you don't have to sum up on the full project and resume it and sort of give a.
No, okay. Let's say that the final report will look like as the periodic report, basically.
Okay, what we need to talk about, because that's one thing. That's what it looks like. Then another thing is that what happens in reality when you make your periodic report halfway through. Let's just say you have two reports. You have in the middle and the end. So submit the periodic one. Is there anything? Because then it's like I can perceive that it's like then your system's up and running. Yeah, you have been more and more, collecting information in the first period, so you sort of get more and more skilled and adapting also to the ways of reporting on that specific project. As you said, it's customized each time. So I guess it's just an assumption. Correct me if I'm wrong. That the second period where you collect data and information, it's optimized from the fact that it did the periodic reporting gathered and submitted, because then that's how the group work. That's just how I need to be aware of when I collect data and have to put things together in one. That specific part, and it doesn't right. Is it correct? Correct assumption that gets more efficient the path from periodic to end.
Yeah, it's correct. Also because in the meantime, you have received the comments from the project officer as well. So you know also what the project officer is considering most important, or probably he or she has asked for specific modification to the periodic report. So you know that the project officer is valuing more some information in the report. So you adapt also to this.
Thanks for mentioning that, because I had it on my mind, but then it slipped. Yes, the collaboration with the project officer. Is there anything you need to mention
Yeah.
around that? Now we have him, her.
Yeah, I think that this is very, very important to maintain an open and proactive communication with the project officer throughout the reporting process. So coordinators do not have to hesitate to get in contact if they encounter any challenge or if they need clarification on reporting requirements. I would like to mention here that in the past I was, as I said before, I was a project manager of a very large project in FP7, so very long time ago. So, but it was very...
Don't make us older than we are. I remember FP7. I remember.
I started with FP5 probably, so... So in that case, there were 30 partners involved, and the total budget for the project was almost 20 million. So it was a very large project and complex project. And in that case, the way in which the project officer managed the reporting was quite unique, but very, very effective, because every year, before the reporting session was launched, he contacted me to align on the reporting schedule. So even though we have 60 days and to submit the report, he asked me to share with him a draft of the technical reporting, even if it is not consolidated, even if it is still a draft with modification, missing parts, etc., because he started looking at the information available and tried to provide feedback, of course, in an informal way, even before we submit the final version of the portal. So also on the financial side, he was looking at the draft of the financial statement through the portal and checking in parallel with me that there are no major issues blocking the report acceptance. So this resulted in reports approved very quickly after the submission, because he had already looked through that, and consequently payments release faster. So let's say that we submit the report in January, and in, early March already at the payment. So it's very, very fast. So it was a win-win situation. So of course I recognize that this is not a usual situation, because in 20 years it happens to me just once. And I'm not suggesting you, of course, to ask your project officer to proceed like this, because it was, of course, unique to him. But the message here is that the project officer should not be seen as an enemy or as a strict judge that is ready to point out mistakes. Project officers are also evaluated on their side in their capacities and performance. So it is also in their interest that the projects they manage progress smoothly. So
they're also humans.
Exactly. So you don't be afraid of them, but instead you need to join forces with them and find out the way to collaborate closely and to obtain the results that you need to obtain.
Oh, this is extremely important what Serena she's mentioning here, and and the good thing is I already recorded my project officer episode. I managed to get a former project officer in. We talked about this, having from the other side of the table their point of view, right? How they see it when they sit in there, and exactly this. Together with Georg Melterman-Tui, where we also talked about already in the first episode in this series on the contract negotiations. First thing, create a strong and confident and respectful relationship with the project officer. It's the first thing he does. When the first email comes, it's pivotal for the process to have a good relationship with that person and perceiving that individual as someone who that person has maybe 10 projects that they are managing in their end, and they want everything to be good with their projects, and they want everything. So they are the allies. They're not your it's not a teacher or a censor of what you do. They of course need to make sure that the money is spent in the way according to the contract, but they are your help and your ally, and should be perceived as such, because they, as much as you want your project to succeed as smooth as possible. So listen to what Serena's just said. It's very important. Yeah. So how actually do you, now I just mentioned an example, it's a very good one. It's also an outstanding one. My experience, and I do remember, I also a very nice project officer when the only project I ever been coordinating. She's very, very kind. So she helped a lot. Yeah. I was new. I hadn't done it before, and she was very so. Of course, I'm going to take you through this and help you as much as I can in my end. Ask your manager also with things, but I'm going to help in my end with this. So that's my experience, is that they go into a collaboration if need be. If you have troubles, if there's anything, they also need it over the goal line, so to say. Yeah. Do you have any, besides from this example just mentioned, on the average? I know you're also listening, project officers. I know that you also listen to this program. Are there any, is the normal experience? That's probably good, no?
Yeah, I would say
Yeah.
yes, because in any case, you have the occasion to meet them at the kickoff meeting, for example. So some of the projects already invite the project officer at the kickoff meeting. So you have the occasion to meet them in person and to have also, let's say, some time with them in an informal way. So probably at the dinner, or I don't know, in the social side of the event. And you could have a sense of the person. So try to relate more.
Yeah, it's because they are as different as people.
Yeah.
It's but they are civil servants, and they clerks, public clerks, and they're supposed to make things as smooth as possible. And but they are all very. I've never experienced project officers that were not kind. I've experienced project officers that were a little bit more reserved or formal, but never. I've heard stories of project officers that were not collaborative, that were not very, facilitating in relation to a good collaboration with the coordinator. But they are rare.
Yeah, I would say
Rare
so.
stories. It's the general is exactly what we're talking about here. It's persons that are forthcoming and helpful.
Yeah, sure.
They check the things they have to check, so that's the formality of things that they need to check with you. And if things go slight sideways, you might have the occasional strict email, or in different degrees, depending on how serious it is towards the deadlines of where you have to reach things. But that's how it's supposed to be. It's taxpayers' money, and they safeguard that. Yeah. So they don't want to waste it because the project is, because that's the horror of any. It's that the project, it crashes, because then it's a lot of money wasted, and it's not good for the commission itself. They pick the the evaluators pick the project, but it's their funding system that picked that proposal as they needed to succeed. As a funding administrator, it's also important for the commission to have good examples of see how good our funding scheme is, because they will have political discussions on budgets for the Horizon Europe, for the framework program. And if too much comes out that the member state politicians say, "What's this? You piss our money away," then they will cut in the budget. So it's these are the dynamics behind what they are dealing with there. No. Is there anything specifically related? So we just established before we start talking about the project officer that it runs a little bit more smoothly. Sort of you in the second part towards the end, that you have sort of an idea of how it rolls. It runs a little bit more on tracks. Is there anything else in relating to the end reporting that you need to
The final report, you say.
yeah
No, I would say no.
Because what you say is that it's exactly like the periodic.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
there is nothing specific connection to this.
And and I guess it's the same deadline, 60 days from the end.
Exactly. Yeah. This is exactly the same.
Is the commission stricter on the end reporting in relation to that date, so to say, because of the project having finalized? Is the project officer more, we need the final reporting, there's no negotiation of the submission date of the
No, let's say that they are enforcing this deadline in the sense that when the 60 days are ended and you have not submitted the reporting, then they send a reminder with a very strict deadline, let's say 7 days or something like that. And then if you do not send the report, then this may have some consequences, of course. Let's say that it is a best practice to inform the project officer that something is delayed and that you cannot meet the deadline. For example, it happens sometimes that the deadline is coinciding with, I don't know, a festive day or something like that, and you cannot click on the button on that day specifically. Then you can ask, I don't know, a few days delayed, but then you will receive in any case the reminder. So they have to go on with their procedures. But of course, if the project officer is informed, it's better, because otherwise it's not good.
Then we need to talk about something else that I didn't put in the rundown, but you have been mentioning it en passant here a couple of times, the submission system. To prepare people a little bit about what that system looks like. So it's in the funding and tenders portal.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so is it how is it? Is it done like this, that you under your project, there's a submission module of a reporting module in that, or how does it function?
So when you access the portal and you enter specifically on the let's say project space, you will see the continuous reporting module, and then you can access and complete all the tables. And then once the reporting period closes, the project officer will open the periodic reporting module, and then you can, of course, continue modifying the continuous reporting so that the periodic report updates. But also when you are ready with all the tables for the part A and all the project partners have completed their financial statement, you have to accept all the financial statement from the partners, and in some way you include them in the reporting package. And then you have to upload the part B, that is the narrative part of the report. You upload it as a PDF. And then when you have all these three parts ready, so part A is everything complete, and you have uploaded the PDF, and then all the financial statements of the partners have been completed, and you have accepted them and included them in the package, then you are ready. And as a coordinator, you can submit it. Because all the partners should contribute to the report, but they do not have the power to submit it. It is a responsibility of the coordinators only.
Of course, naturally.
Yeah.
So in the system, is it sort of predefined tables, or do you upload an Excel spreadsheet in these tables you mentioned? Or how does that work?
It is already predefined tables. So you find all the structure of the table, and you just have to complete adding lines to the different tables.
Yeah. Okay. So what you do in your own system, you mirror what the commission, how that structured that table, and you mirror it in an Excel spreadsheet when you gather data from your partners.
Exactly.
Yeah? And for the technical reports, I guess that's a PDF document that you gather and upload.
Yes. Yeah. You have a specific template to be respected that has a specific structure. You have, first of all, an overview of the progress. So you have to relate your activities and to the objectives. And then you have an explanation of the work carried out by work package. Then you have a section dedicated to the impact and a section dedicated to the update of the plan for exploitation and dissemination. Then if your project underwent a review, you have a specific section focusing on how the comments of the reviewers have been taken into account by the project partners. Then you have a section on open science, and last but not least, you have this section related to deviation. So as we mentioned before, where you need to describe all the deviations from the original plan, both from the technical side and from a financial perspective.
Is there a limit to pages in this?
No.
Excellent.
That's one of the major challenges that researchers face, let's say.
So here you're not facing, here you still need to deal with some gibberish here and there, I guess. Researchers that ramble. Yeah. But basically, like, this is what we talk about, different languages, so to say, how people write, and some researchers, they have a tendency to, no, it's very important that I write this, but it's not. But yeah, there's a lot of things that needs to be included in their perception, but and this is, I guess, you're not under the same pressure here as when you submit a proposal, because there's a page limit, right, where you have to cut people's very important sections away, vital for the proposal to win the win the funding. So here it's a little bit more relaxed. You don't have to take the same kind of discussions with the dear researchers. Okay. It was important. I actually forgot to dig into, because this is important for people if they haven't done it before, to understand what kind of elements are there in the portal, and that it is there in the portal. You have to do it. Is there anything about the submission portal that needs to be mentioned for people to understand how that works?
No, I would say no. Because once you see, it's, I don't know, from my side, that I'm working on European projects since 20 years, is almost intuitive. It may not seem like that for people experiencing it for the first time. But yeah, once you are within the system, then it's quite intuitive, let's say.
Now, this podcast, nobody, all my listeners are very intelligent, but no matter if you don't think it's intuitive, don't think that we regard you as less intelligent. But this is exactly the purpose of this podcast, so everybody has an idea of what it looks like. No, because everybody can be confused, even if they are very good project coordinators and if are doing it the first time. So this is why it's important for me that we cover this.
Yeah. In any case, there are guidelines in the funding and tender portal. So there is also an help desk dedicated to this. So if you are encountering any problem, you can write through the portal to the help desk to be assisted in any technical question. And then so you have the project officer in case you do not understand anything about it.
They are very helpful. They're very helpful. I've just went through a process with a director that was laid off at my work, and then we had to sign the grant agreement. So we didn't have a LIA.
Mm-hmm.
He could not recreate. He couldn't remember his password, and he could not create a new one because the email was closed after he was, his stuff. So we had to go from scratch with the chairman of the board signature, stuff like this. Yeah, I've been going through that process here in spring, but they're very helpful.
Yeah,
they're very cool, because that was what I thought. Oh, shit, I need to go through this. Going to take an eternity, but it did take a while. Not an eternity, but it did take a while. But it was not because of the IT help desk, because they were very responsive. They reacted almost immediately every time that I put up a question on how to proceed next. So yeah, I can say that for anybody who's not tried that yet. Whenever you're in troubles, write them. Don't think, oh, it doesn't matter if I write them. That's oblivious. But yeah, they will get back to you, and quick. Is that it?
I have strategies for a compelling report, then I have do and don'ts, and then I have challenges.
Yeah. Strategies for compelling. Do you have any notes on that?
Yeah, I think that the key for a compelling report is always to put yourself in the shoes of the reader and try to structure the report narrative to make sure that the project officer easily find what they are looking for. And of course, what they are looking for is clearly described in the report template. We do not have to guess it, but sometimes it is difficult for coordinators and partners to read through the lines and understand what is the expectation. So I think that the strategies that I usually use can be summarized in 4 main points. So the first point that I think it's important is to make clear in the report the links between the project components. So here I mean the link between the activities and the relevant objectives, but also the interconnection between work packages. So, for example, if we look at the first section of the periodic report, you are asked to provide an overview of the project objectives and key achievements during the reporting period. And the guidelines specifically mention that you have to list the specific objectives for the project as described in the description of action, to provide a short summary of the progress towards the achievement of each of the project objectives, and highlight significant activities in support of these achievements. So you see that there is an interdependency. So you may decide if you want to include a table here or a list with sub-items, but the point is that you need to list the objectives, but for each of them, you need to indicate the main achievements that are leading to that objective. And for each of these achievements, you need to specify the activity. So you see the structure here, no? But oftentimes, these details are not included in this section of the report, not in this way. Sometimes this section is more like an introduction to the report and only list the objectives, so the planned ones. Or if it is included an overview of the achievements so far, it is done as an overall narrative. So you miss these connections between activities, achievements, and objectives. So you see what I mean? So it's important that these things are related to each other. And even in the description of the work packages and tasks. So if some results feed into another task in another work package, you need to mention it, because then it's easier to understand how the things will go throughout the next reporting period, for example, or throughout the project. The second one is leveraging on indicators. So most probably in your project, you have a list of indicators, because in the proposal application template, one of the requirements is to have measurable objectives. So if you have been funded, I presume that you did your job well and that you have project indicators. So if you have a list of indicators in the description of action, in the report, you need to give evidence that you are aware of these commitments that you made during the proposal preparation. So how you do this? So you make an assessment on the status of these indicators, but not just because you have to tick a box. Okay, we have included a table where we compare the current status to the plan. We are done. We are fine. No, but because these data tell us something. So the analysis of this data informs your plan for the coming period. So, for example, if you plan to organize 10 events in 4 years, and at the end of the 3rd year, you just organized 3 of them, in the dedicated task, you need to specify what is your plan to organize 7 events in 1 year, because this may represent a challenge. And if you're not justifying this in the task, rest reassured that the project officer will ask you to do it when coming back to you with the comments on the report, because this is what the project officer is also looking for challenges and things that may go wrong, because these have an impact on the achievement of the objectives. So the third point I would like to mention here is to discuss the next steps and plans for the coming period, because I think that these aspects is overlooked. And this, of course, relates with the clarity on the project direction. So you should make sure that at the end of each task or at the end of each work package, depending on how you feel it's more appropriate, you include a short description of what the next steps are. So once again, this does not mean repeating the contents of the description of action, but this is more to answer the question on how do we proceed from here to reach the work package objectives and the project objectives. So, and this is something that I feel that many times is overlooked, but it helps the project officer to understand that we are clear on our path. So for them, it's a critical indicator.
Yeah.
And let's say that the fourth and last is highlight the project impact. So this is the most difficult for researchers because I always feel that the impact section is yet considered one of the most blah blah sections, and it is not, of course, as the European Commission is giving more and more emphasis on this part. And I often realize that it's difficult for researchers to scratch the surface and go beyond vague descriptions. So in the impact section of the report, they tend to copy-paste the application section without doing a further step. But the idea is to be more specific, because here, what the project officer would like to see is concrete facts and figures, numbers. So
researchers, they don't like that. It
yeah.
doesn't have to be too concrete, you know.
But recently, I participated to the midterm review of a twinning project I'm involved in, and the project officer congratulates with us for the quality of the report. And it was a very big success. So not only because the report was comprehensive, was well written, was well curated from a layout point of view, included measurable indicators, etc., but also because we have been able to convey in the report what the project activities have enabled us to do, what organizational changes have taken place thanks to the project. So from the report, it was clear that the funds were used strategically to create some changes within the organization, even though there have been deviations. Because at the end, what matters also the project officer is that the project is useful, make some changes.
Exactly.
So we have been able to describe how we leverage the funds obtained to start a virtuous cycles of activity that have the possibility to expand and grow beyond the scope of the project. So my suggestion is to make sure that your project officer perceives this energy and good vibes while reading your report, because this makes all the difference. So sometimes the report is taken just as a bureaucratic requirement. Okay, that's true. Project officer have to tick their boxes. So of course the report has also this function. But it also represents the occasion to show how good you have been and also to convey the value and impact of the research performed.
Yeah. Thanks. This was a nice outline of, I hope you're taking notes out there. It was a very, very nice outline of how you can help yourself in the structure of doing this. So both making a structure things in a way that makes it easier for the person to read, the project officer, and to make them realize that you're on the good path and convince them that this is the right way to spend the money. Yeah, thanks. Very nice. This is something that's why you're here, Serena. Right? Because I know you would be able to do something like this. It's a huge value for the listeners. One simple question: how long are these reports?
It depends. it depends on the number of work packages, of course, because if you have 3 work packages or 10 work packages, it may, I don't know, let's say not less than 50 pages. Yeah, let's say about 50 pages.
And is that everything, including the budget tables and all these things?
The budget is not part of the technical part, let's say.
So the technical is 50.
Yeah, unless you have any specific deviation on the financial side that you have to describe in the deviation section. But then the financial side is not treated so much in the periodic report, let's say in the technical, in the part B, let's say.
Well, a substantial document.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good for expectations out there if you haven't done this before. So it's I also have another thought. Do you have examples of horror? Do you have some examples from projects, or did you hear from other projects where the reporting went horribly wrong?
Let's say that I have projects where the coordinator did not show any care. Of course, it was not me as project manager in that case.
I understand.
I wanted to clarify.
You have heard about someone.
No, I wasn't. Somehow I was involved as a partner. I was not me coordinating.
You followed the process.
I followed the process. And in that case, the coordinator did not show any care towards the document or the process in general. For example, handling the report without doing a final review or editing different fonts in different parts of the document, obvious copy-paste from scientific publication or other documents, incomplete parts, unfinished section, so something like this. But also delivering the report late without notifying the project officer or not responding in a timely manner to the issues raised by the project officer or dealing with them in a very superficial manner. So these attitudes, in my opinion, are absolutely to be avoided because, as we were mentioning before, there are also relationships behind this effort. So this type of attitude may call into question the project management capacity of the coordinator, but also undermine the credibility of the consortium in general, and of course affect the relationship with the project officer. So this is the most horrible experience I had.
You will meet the occasional possible beneficiary that thinks it's absolutely bullshit to do all these kind of reportings or long proposals or whatever, but then stay away from EU funding. It's fine. It's legit. Like if that's what you think about the system, well. So, because if you enter the system, you have to work on the premises of the system. This is how it works. So if it's you destroy a lot for many people, this is the attitude. Does the commission have any sanctions possibilities if you do a crappy report? Can they say?
Let's say that the consequences are that if you do not reply to all the comments, the first consequence is that you are not receiving the money because the process will be continuously open and they are not closing it. So this will delay significantly the release of the payment. So this is one consequence. Secondly, if they start to put into question the feasibility of the project or the management of the project, they can stop the project either temporarily or definitely. Let's say that they have the possibility to do that. So once, it was very long time ago, once it happened that the project officer was not satisfied at all with the reporting and they stopped the project for some time. And they said, okay, while you are revising all the deliverables and the report, the project is stopped, meaning that you cannot declare any cost in this period of time, in the suspension. And then when you submit again your reports and deliverable, once they are accepted, then the project can restart. But in the meantime, you are not paid. So this happened just once to me in 20 years, I have to say. But this may happen.
Yeah, of course, they do have some sanctions, but I was curious because I never heard about it. So,
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. Learnings, do's and don'ts. Do you have any, besides from already what you've been sharing, is there anything that you...
Yeah, I think that I don't want to be obvious here, of course. I won't tell you the usual thing, respect the template, respect the deadline. No. This is obvious, of course.
Sure.
Let's say, as a suggestion, I would say to allocate sufficient time and resources for data collection and analysis. So we said this before, gathering, verifying, and homogenizing the necessary data is time consuming, and you may require more than 60 days. So especially if you are dealing with large consortia and complex projects, probably you need to schedule enough time and more than 60 days. Mm-hmm. The don'ts we just said, what you do not have to repeat. Yeah.
Respect the role. Respect your consortium, respect the commission.
Exactly.
Be timely, be kind, be fair. Toughest challenge?
I would say, in my experience, there are two common challenges that are coordinators and researchers are experiencing when dealing with the reporting. The first one is understanding the level of details to be provided in the report. Sound very, I don't know. Because from one side, the report needs to be clear and concise, but at the same time, it should provide accurate and detailed information. So researchers get confused in front of this indication because it's counterintuitive, especially when dealing with the description of the progresses for each work package, because they tend to be very long. And so it's difficult for them to understand how to be clear and concise in that part. So in that sense, when coordinators are asking me, so how do I do this? So there is no one fits all solution, but generally the answer I provide to them is that they need to provide enough details to make the project officer understand the type of activities, the role of the partners in the activities, and the role and the significance of the activities in the project. This is also because the financial report will be evaluated based on the technical report. So there should be a strict connection with the activities described in the technical report and the costs declared in the financial statement.
Oh, but that was an important information here in the end.
Exactly.
Yeah. So your poetry, it's important, guys. Pay attention, because that's the standard that everything else is measured up against. That's important.
Yeah,
that you understand that when you gather your text and develop the document.
So there is no need to provide the very tiny details, for example, in relation to meetings. So this is one of the most common challenges. So if you're organizing a general assembly every year to discuss the stages of the different work packages, so the classical annual meeting with all the partners, when you present each work package one after another, okay? It is important to say in the report that the meeting has taken place, because then the officer would expect travel costs associated to it. But probably in that case, you do not need to include very detailed minutes of what has been presented there.
No.
But I saw reports where there was the agenda included, the minutes included, everything. So it's too much. But on the other side, speaking about meetings, for example, if you instead have organized a training or a dissemination event. Maybe you want to add some more details, for example, the number of people attending, their affiliation, or their sector, because this way you can demonstrate the impact that the event may have had on stakeholders.
Definitely.
So it depends on the...
That's why, and even you might get a good idea, might be creative when the project rolls out to disseminate it a specifically good way for a workshop, a specific concept that you didn't think of when you wrote the proposal, and then you can fold it out. So this is as a result of the creative process we had when we did that part of the reaching out to people that we realized how we could do it. So I guess that's
Then the second challenge is dealing with the deviation in the reports, because this happens all the time, that researchers fear that having deviations listed in the report is a bad sign, and that could be perceived as the result of a weak management. But I would say that this may be the opposite instead, because the fact that you have identified the deviation and that you are implementing measures to manage it is a sign that the project is well managed. I think it is worst when you try to hide the deviation, because sometimes some coordinators think about, okay, I just don't tell it, hoping that the project officer will not discover it. But sometimes the project officer are researchers themselves, and we do not know. It happens to me that the project officer have a background in the topic of the project. So if it happens, it is difficult to hide a deviation.
But it doesn't make any sense.
Exactly.
Because there's a reason for a deviation. There's a technical or research related, the process related reason. 29 out of 30 times, it's not something you have to hide. It is just a result of a technology development or research process, and it's like this in innovation processes. It's not a straight line. So you explain the deviations because the research project officer knows that that's the baseline of all research innovation projects. That things.
Let's say a barrier for some of the coordinators. So of course, you need to be convincing on the fact that we did
everything like we did it, point A to B to C, everything has run absolutely as smoothly as we have written. So please give us the money. Please don't take away the money.
Yes.
They won't take away your money if you did a proper work.
No, but most of the time it's not like that. Unless you say, okay, I had a big deviation and I do not know how to progress from here. So in that case, probably they will question your capability as a coordinator. But generally, if you also have an interaction with the project officer, you can have a discussion on this and find together a solution for that. You can have an amendment, for example, and explaining what is the reason behind that deviation. You can change your work plan accordingly. But
yes, but that's also why it's important to have an open and transparent relationship with your project officer, because you would tell them as you go.
Exactly.
You would inform them, look, we have to do this happened, and so and they will understand, because it's not a matter of you being sloppish or that you're not doing things correctly. It's just that's the way that an innovation process or research process is. You need to you adjust as you go, and they understand that, but you explain it. It's like this.
Yeah, but it's still scary for coordinator admitting that they had experienced a problem. So
take away the money. They take my money. That's the researchers. That's the resources. Yeah. Don't take away my resources. They sleep with them at night. Oh, the resources. We're done?
I think so.
Dear listeners, I hope that this was very informative for you. So I hope that you, thanks for listening to the end. I hope that this was instrumental for you to listen to us running through this and all the tips and tricks and advices that Serena here has shared with you and me. If you are a first timer, or if you have not checked it out yet, go to my website, thegrand.eu. There you'll find a very big back catalog with podcast episodes, long form, with lots and lots and lots and lots of information, of guest episodes which is both digging into content like this, instructive, but also on like discussions on different subjects and so on. There's lots of information, and if it's related to Horizon Europe, the framework program, as sort of talk about here, there's lots. There's even, you'll find buttons. I categorized my episodes, or try at least, given it's a time-consuming thing to sit and categorize them. But I do that because I want to support you guys being able to go in and find stuff that suits exactly what you're dealing with. So while you are in there, subscribe to my email list. If you have any sympathy with what I'm doing here, it spells, this is how you build up an independent podcast like I'm doing here. So if you want to help me with that, please subscribe to that. Finally, connect with me on LinkedIn. Not only you connect with me, Niels Tudor-Winther on LinkedIn, but you should also, I've tried to channel people now I just established the Grant page there. So you can follow that page. This is where I try to channel things into as I move on. My LinkedIn profile is a weird mix of my daytime job, working in a municipality setting with attracting international labor, stuff like this, political organization, and then a lot of EU funding stuff. So I am trying to channel things into the Grant page, to sort of divide things a little bit up. That's that. The more I do this, the more structured I do it here in the end. In the beginning, when I was doing the end, Serena, I was fumbling around what to say in the end, but now I sort of structured it. 3 things. And you have this podcast theory, you have these things that need to be an action in the end to engage your listener. Yeah, you heard it out there. I sometimes give you a peek into the podcast machine. Thanks again for joining me, Serena.
Thank you too.
It's been a pleasure. And now you are always welcome. And I know you're very busy. I know that it's you on purpose keep me at an arm's length, because I would grab the whole arm if I could, because you are busy and you worry about this. And I perfectly understand we're on the same discourse when it comes to business around this area. But I really do hope you will come back, and we can maybe talk about also some of the softer things about being in this sector. So that's an open invitation.
Let's stay connected. Okay.
Now let's say goodbye to the dear listeners. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Grant. All the Grant episodes have their own site on the Grant website. You'll find the link in the episode notes where you listen to your podcast. On the site for this double episode, you will find a link to Serena's personal LinkedIn site. Further, there's a link to Serena's great blog with tips for Horizon Europe proposals and management. And finally, of course, there's a link to the rest of the implementation series. Next week, I dig into the manufacturing industry together with the solid and experienced Chris de Kuiper from EFRA, the European Factories of the Future Research Association, where we have a conversation about their role as a European partnership. This you don't want to miss. Remember that the Grant would really like to join some EU proposals as a partner or subcontractor. I'm slowly getting interested feedback for having the Grant included in proposals for 2025 calls. Reach out if you would also like to have the coolest podcast connected to your consortium. Also remember that you can develop your very own podcast episodes together with the Grant. You get a plug-and-play solution where you only need to think about the content and who should be on the show. Reach out also if you just want to get an idea of the possibilities. See you next week.